Okay, I have played Final Fantasy 1 Dawn of Souls before. Long time ago when it came out on GBA, so 2004, 16 years ago, I was 17 years old. It was my first time playing Final Fantasy 1. I think I may have rented it once on the NES when I was a really young kid and did not get it. I think it wasn't until I played Earthbound that I understood JRPGs. Was super confused, probably took it back to Blockbuster or Family Video, whatever. It has been so long since I played Final Fantasy 1 that I remember virtually nothing from it. I do remember that Dawn of Souls makes a lot of nice improvements to the base game. There were some things about Final Fantasy 1 that have not aged super well that I know this game fixes, like enemy targeting. Assign character name and class. This. Let's do... Actually, I kind of like the idea of just using the base recommended party. Red mages are pretty good, though. Select his auto name. That's cool. Four white mages. It'll never work. They still have spell slots, I think. The main thing that they changed was... It's still Vancian magic. I think the main thing they changed in the original game, when you would target... Multiple people would target the same enemy. If the enemy died before they all got to act, they would all just waste their turn, and I think this one retargets. Oh, they replaced it with MP? Okay. I guess I prefer that to Vancian magic, so I'll take it. Try to get over here. There it goes. Seas rage, the earth decays. I hate Vancian magic. I hate it with all my heart. People believe in a prophecy, patiently awaiting its fulfillment. Darkness fills the world, 4 warriors of light shall come. It works in Dark Souls because the day is resting at a bonfire or dying. Like, I guess my problem with Vancian magic is it being connected to something which I perceive to be silly and arbitrary. But you want that checkpoint to occur all the time in Dark Souls. Let me get into a fight really quick. See if I save. This one, Final Fantasy 2 and Final Fantasy 3 will be the closest thing to Amnesia playthroughs from the Final Fantasy franchise. I've played 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 a bunch of times, enough to remember them decently well. 1 and 2 I played once when Dawn of Souls came out and never again. And then 3, I think I got to the final dungeon but never finished it, because it's the one that's brutal with saves. I'm probably going to use... Oh no, my plan was to play Final Fantasy 3 in the DS version on my actual 3DS with the capture card. So that means I can't abuse save states in the final dungeon. Oh no. Feeling like I'm in pen and paper because they're a huge logistical issue. Yeah. Isn't the 4 White Mage party a meme? There was like a Nintendo Power article on it being possible or something. Are the ability ups in this game RNG? Those look pretty random to me. This is Cornelia instead of Corneria, okay. King is searching for the prophesied warriors of light. Welcome, travelers. I'm told you carry crystals. Is this true? It's just like, yep. Just as Lucan's prophecy foretold. Darkness veils the world, 4 warriors of light shall come. I need to read through 8-Bit Theater again. I think most of my familiarity with Final Fantasy I's plot comes from that. I'm super into webcomics and this era of the internet. Uh-oh. Well, that's a bad sign. Cannot dismiss this as mere coincidence. Will you not rescue my daughter, Sarah? Garland, a knight once in His Majesty's service, has abducted Princess Sarah. I feel like I've also been exposed to a decent amount of this game's plot from Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm. Garland is the finest swordsman in the kingdom. We have none who can match him. Heard you wish to journey to the continent to our north. I can rescue Sarah. I'll have the bridge rebuilt as a sign of my gratitude. Garland's no longer the man I knew. Dancing Girl has tutorial deets, so that's kind of a cool effect that they added here. Nice. Whoa, there's a sprint button. Okay. I assume that all characters have that. I think that, was it Final Fantasy V, the original version of the game, you could only sprint if you had a thief, and only if they took the dash ability. But then they added a sprint ability by default, and the thief ability just doubled your speed. Those crystals, could it be? I have a feeling that them teleporting you here to talk to the king is a change in Dawn of Souls. I'm pretty sure the original Final Fantasy 1 on the NES, you just booted the game up and you're just on the map. And it's like, go. Right? I am Jane, Queen of Cornelia. Please bring my daughter back to me safely. I think you could do all these things, but you didn't have to, which is what was interesting. You could just go straight to the first dungeon. You're supposed to be helpful. It's not very helpful. It's a well. It looks like you could climb inside, but you can't, really. Is that a Dragon Quest joke? Man, this shit is dirt cheap. Hammer. Pretty good. Just coming off of Dragon Quest to have equipment upgrades that you can actually afford. You're not agonizing in every town. Something I've always liked about Final Fantasy compared to Dragon Quest 2 is just like, as you progress through the game, the stuff you find is generally going to be an upgrade. And I guess you could argue that the Dragon Quest model is more immersive or something, because you're finding 20 hats 60 hours into the game. Why would rando old man in town number 17 have Excalibur in his wardrobe? But I think it generally makes these games easier to play. Okay, so they each have 3 slots. I'm starting to remember this now, kind of. Well, I guess they changed it, right? You can't teach any of them all of the spells, and part of that is because if you had a red mage, they'd have to choose between 8 spells for 3 slots instead of 4. Sleep's any good in this game. Dia. Damage is undead. I forgot Dia was in Final Fantasy 1. That's the main white mage attack in Final Fantasy 11, the MMO. Wait, did they just make this up for this game? Guess not. Probably fine for now. My only experience, I guess, with Dragon Quest is 7 and 8, and both of them, the shops are insanely expensive. You'll spend all of the money you've earned from grinding from one town to the next on, like, one piece of equipment. Do not lose heart. Oh, did they add Dia as a dot in 14? That's cool. Don't let them rest consequence-free. Yeah, I guess I would probably prefer to do Vancian where the DM completely controls Vancian triggers. Like, literally use Dark Souls bonfires or something like that. When you get to this point, all your shit comes back. That way they can backtrack to 1 if they need to, but... just makes it easier for me to balance the encounters if I can know what their capabilities are going to be. Okay, I should probably go rest. So is anyone familiar with the history of Final Fantasy 1? I guess I've watched a couple videos here and there about, like, the development of Dragon Quest. And how it was, like, the Dragon Quest team were inspired by super complicated Western dungeon delvers and games inspired by Dungeons & Dragons. And decided to make a linear, plot-focused, streamlined version of that. As opposed to the Western focus, which was more on letting you create your own characters and name them and kind of do whatever you wanted. And then, I guess, is the whole thing about Final Fantasy being a Japanese phrase that means last-ditch effort or last shot? Like, is that apocryphal? I've heard that so much that I start to wonder whether it's actually true. Like, the whole, they don't release... it's illegal to release Dragon Quest games on a holiday in Japan isn't actually true. It's like... Enix and then Square Enix agreed not to do it so that kids wouldn't skip school to play it, but it was never actually a law. Final Fantasy title thing isn't a thing? Okay. Yeah, there's a really good Game Maker's Toolkit video about how Japanese RPGs were inspired by Western RPGs like Wizardry. I would recommend watching it. And I guess the earlier JRPGs may have had a shared influence between Dragon Quest and those Western RPGs like Wizardry, but from the most part, it seems like after that, second generation and beyond JRPGs took most of their inspiration from Dragon Quest. It was kind of diluted. I think this one lets me save anywhere because it's a mobile game. I think if I turn B button dash off, always dash when moving. There we go. Earth Gift Shrine. This is the music in the Final Fantasy 1 soundtrack that I hear all over the internet. Covers of it, medleys, Final Fantasy Theater Rhythm. This is Earth Gift Shrine. Long ago you could enter, but the way's been shut. That doesn't look like a friendly person. There's a decent number of references to Final Fantasy 1 and FF9. Like the Four Fiends. old folky games in the West. Approached by the police in Kyoto. Oh, okay. So that one's not completely untrue. Does anyone know how Sakaguchi got his inspiration to make Final Fantasy? This definitely has always felt pretty different from what little I've seen of Dragon Quest. Right now my Thief Baku is better than my Warrior, because I think he has a higher stat that causes him to attack more times in a row. Alright, no target all ability in this, huh? Probably should cast Dia there. Or not. Zombies are pretty easy. This game's true turn-based then, isn't it? No ATB? Was ATB not until Final Fantasy IV then? Fighting Fantasy. Thief doesn't get a steal ability in this game, I don't think, right? I kind of hate ATB. I get what they were trying to do with it. I've talked about this in other JRPG episodes, but like, it turns out it's basically turn-based, except the computer is better at taking turns than you. The only game that I've played with ATB where it seems to make sense is Chrono Trigger, because you might have a reason to delay a character's turn in that game. I think he's my weakest character now. Ninja gets a bunch of attacks in FF1 though, right? Kind of nice that I don't have to like freak out and select everyone's actions insanely fast. Guess you could easily grind up a party of all white mages in here just with Dia spam, even in the original game with the Vancian magic. Ocean. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with the bottom of the screen for next episode. Might be a setting I can tweak to make that stop. It's not the worst thing in the world, but it's a little annoying. Monk in this one is you just don't give them any gear ever, or something. I feel like they must have rebalanced the combat math in this game, because I feel like when I tried the NES version I got completely shredded by these early enemies until I did a significant amount of grinding. ATB is different when you don't use weight. Yeah. So I like the design philosophy of ATB, I just feel like the implementation is not far enough removed from turn-based to actually be interesting. seems like I really thought about the enemy math in this. I do appreciate the retranslation. Yeah, everyone just picks weight. Bound by Mystic Key. Or you do the thing I keep talking about in JRPGs that, like, you really, when you have a turn-based game, you really have to argue for the quality or usefulness of any ability that's not just the attack command. It's really got to do something special to beat out old faithful Rock in Rock, Paper, Scissors. Remind me how 10-2's ATB system interacted with the game? Was there some kind of cost to pay? Like, was there benefit to waiting? Keeping a character active and not using them right away, like in Chrono Trigger? I don't remember 10-2's combat system very well, but I do remember thinking it was really good, and being said the story was so ridiculous. Like comboing dual text and triple text in Chrono Trigger. Yeah. Oh no, now it's stuck on the screen. That's extra bad. Alright, let me try to get out of here and see if it clears. I usually do some research. If we're going to have to emulate a title, first of all, I try to avoid emulating if I can. And I try to spend some time researching compatibility issues before stream, but we beat Super Mario Sunshine 10 hours early, so I just kind of threw this on. See what I can find before we play this again next week. I think recent streaming efforts where we're playing retro titles that are difficult to obtain, like a re-release copy on Virtual Console or something, have informed me just how not perfect emulation is on the whole. Like, when you're not streaming a game, little things like that are like, oh, that's kind of weird, whatever, it's fine. Lots of little things like that, though. The water not appearing in the final boss in Mario Sunshine. Yeah, and I like that Daki. Doesn't just degenerate to shitty turn base. Rest in, then we're gonna go actually progress here. Progress time, let's go. Oops. I think D&D 4th edition experimented with, we call it like a milestone. Every 2 combats, certain things are recharged. I like binding it to something like combat the GM has a little bit more control over. The The king will have no choice but to exchange the kingdom for his daughter's life. Cornelia will be mine. Who's there? The king's lapdogs. Hi, Garland. We'll knock you all down. That sounds like something that would have been in the original game that they kept because it's like Spoony Bard. Hey, there's the poem. If you don't see blind in the stream title, it's not blind. Thanks, Dreadkiller. Doing alright, Fatty? How are you? Effectively blind, though I haven't played it in 16 years. I am Sarah, Princess of Cornelia. It's the first time anyone's ever defeated Garland. Got that nodding emote. There's a lot you can communicate with that nod. Hear the prophecy in its entirety. When the darkness fills the world, 4 warriors of light shall come. I can't get into the shards of light, the darkness will consume all. The person can be found on the continent to our north. Yeah, I think if the players know that every time they rest it's making things harder later, but that's interesting. But if the GM punishes them for it months later, that can feel bad. Sarah's thoughts are always with you. This loot has been entrusted with the princesses of Cornelia for many generations. We got a loot! Sweet. Dancing girl knows odd bits of information, eh? Thanks, game. Wow. Well, cutscene of them fixing the bridge. Guessing in the NES version, the bridge is just fixed. This feels in line with, like, Final Fantasy IV. What does this bridge have to do with the prophecy? Well, if they don't cross the bridge, they do nothing for the rest of the game. Yeah. Rebalancing the math, I'm really glad they did that. I think you could do it in a way that doesn't make it extremely explicit. You could do a thing where every time they rest, when they wake up in the morning, you, like, describe some feeling or some supernatural effect that feels progressively worse and worse. Hey, tutorial old dudes. That might be fun. I would almost want to do that as a GM just to hear what the party theorizes is going to happen when I don't tell them explicitly what I'm planning, because they might have a better bad thing in mind that I can steal. Hey, that's cool. Show-offy little panel here for the prologue to play. So their quest began. With little birds. As the four warriors of light, they felt overwhelmed by the great task destiny had placed before them. Okay, the great task destiny had placed before them, not the great task destiny. They did not even know the true significance of the four crystals they held in their hands. Yeah, exactly, Six Cut. Crystals that once long ago held a light that shone so brilliantly. It works double because then, you know, four players are better at being creative than you are, and they can feel good for having figured it out. Like, yep, you figured it out, guys. Time to cast off the veil of darkness and bring the world once more into light. Yeah, I really like this. Even though the GBA sound chip's not great, they did a good job with it. The strippers, Stalin and JFK. That Oxford comma. Oh, that's cool. You can title screen after the first engine. Anyway, back to this bridge. Going this way instead, let me check. But the original game just had like a static black background with combat frames, right? Cool, there's different combat backgrounds depending on where you're fighting in this one. Found a cave. Ambush, that's bad. Definitely seen the advantage of the high defense on the warrior class. Oh god, 27. Leave the black mage alone! His name is Tope Papa. Okay, so regular attacking is no longer very good for the black mage. For being on GBA, this version of the game, the soundtrack slaps. I agree. Sounds really good. They might, actually, now that you mention it. I know that was an early design feature in the Super Nintendo Final Fantasy games. Marching order, and then later on, like, you could have people that were explicitly in the front or the back. My Black Mage is actually my weakest character defensively right now. Hey, Matoya's Cave. Classic song. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where if you're super used to the Super Nintendo soundtrack, if you hear it on GBA, it sounds tinny and not great. Did a good job with Matoya in Final Fantasy 14. Can't see a blasted thing without my crystal eye. B button select. Oh, that's cool. There's a little map here that he tells you about. Here's B and select at the same time. It depends. I think if you're trying to use the GBA to adapt a better sound chip, it's not going to sound good, but if you build your sound from the ground up for the GBA, then you can have something like the Mother 3 soundtrack, which completely fucking slaps. Alright, yeah, that weird screen glitch I'm going to have to look into for next episode, which I'm going to have to deal with it for the next hour or so. Totally stole the song. Big yikes. These guys hit hard. Oh shit. Do inns resurrect you, or do you have to go to the churches in this one? Nice evade. That's gonna be a bit of a walk. I don't remember if or how early Phoenix Downs are a thing either. Partially restores HP and MP. Only be used outdoors. Can do spiders. I don't know if this game has a certain amount of XP that's divided among living party members. That usually feels better to me. That way if a party member dies, at least the other party members are getting extra XP instead of just XP being lost to the system. That makes sense. Three hit from the thief. Were there spell animations on the NES, or was it just text, descriptive text? I really like them interpreting the Cornelia theme with acoustic guitar. That's cool. 40 gil. Check the item shop really quick just to see what they got. I do sell Phoenix Downs. They're expensive as fuck. Okay. Guess it'll be good to have one for the road, but I should save the rest of my money. Just in case I'm super far away and need to pick somebody up, you know? I'm glad you don't have to explicitly grind in this version of the game. It's a nice touch. It's something that the Dragon Quest remakes don't seem to be super interested in doing. Is dual wielding a thing in this game? Maybe for Ninja? Maybe they added that to make it a little bit more competitive with Warrior and Monk. The hammer damage isn't bad in the White Mage. I guess this was when White Mage was still pretty close to like a D&D cleric. Their melee, like mace damage wasn't terrible. I always really loved the basic Final Fantasy aesthetic, which I'm sure is a shock if you've seen my stream overlay. Like that color of blue. I like the look of the different classes across all the different games. I kind of always liked that Final Fantasy had an aesthetic that wasn't just Akira Toriyama draws this, right? F2 introduces it. I assume not in the NES version of the game, but I could see them adding that to Ninja and Dawn of Souls. So I played 6 a lot, but remind me what the Master's Scroll does? These 6 enemy parties are potentially super nasty. Oh, Offering, I think it was called in the Super Nintendo version. So you do Offering, Genji Glove, and attack 8 times. Gotcha. Hey, new town. Maybe get some new spells here. Preemptive Strike, nice. Pravoka! Somewhere in the earlier town talked about this place. Please help us. Those blasted pirates, they're running around looting and pillaging like they own the place. Let's not mess with them just yet. Oh wow, ethers are dirt cheap in this game. I guess because they didn't even have MP before. I'm used to ethers being like crazy expensive. I feel like you could have a really good time playing this game with 4 warriors. I absolutely love the optimize button. The reality is most of the time it doesn't matter. Sometimes like accessories can be interesting. Three warriors and 1 white mage, yeah. I have to grind for some money. I do want to get these upgrades here. Is there an actual difference between a broadsword and a battle axe? Different accuracy or damage? Grind outside really quick. Try to find an inn. White magic. Removes blind. Silences enemies. Null shock. Wow. This game came out after FF8, I guess. Or FF10, I mean, sorry. What an arbitrary spell to give you. Blizzard, dark, temper, slow. Oh, interesting. So because the game is true turn-based, haste and slow increase or decrease your attack number. That's interesting. There's the end. Gotta add sword chucks to the game, right? Okay, we're gonna grind outside for a bit. I want to buy these weapon upgrades and spell upgrades, and then we'll progress here. Got a home base with an inn, at least. Combat in this feels reasonably fast. That helps a lot, too. It's like some games respect your time by accident because it takes time and effort to add fade in and fade out animations, and the default status of a game, if you don't spend any time on it, is that you just click a button and everything is dismissed instantly, right? Which kind of feels bad in a game like Darksiders, where when you get reduced to 0 health, within 1 frame you can get to the continue screen. You don't even have to watch the death animation. If you were just pressing buttons, because you're pressing buttons in combat, you can accidentally like quit back to the title screen. That's where you get games like Skyward Sword, where they put all this work into making sure that the text slowly scrolls. Can't be skipped. Gotta have the armor of invincibility. Play 3 and 4 are on the DS. The 3D for 3 felt like an upgrade from what little I had played of 3. Because 3 was even lighter on story than 1, right? The Onion Knights. So 1 is characters that the player can design. 2 is the more bog standard now Final Fantasy pre-written casted characters with a guest character that rotates in and out. And then 3 kind of went back to FF1 where you just have your party of unnamed Onion Knights. And the 3D version added story to it. I didn't really like the 3D version of 4. It's fine, I guess. Probably just nostalgia. Scroll at a natural speaking pace, like Ace Attorney with an open skip is optimal. Yeah, I would agree with that. Complex than 1, but less than 2. Okay. Should have gone to the weapon shop first, so it'd make these fights faster, and the warrior didn't really need additional defense. It's okay. Added character development. Gotcha. It's interesting how none of the like super iconic Final Fantasy monsters are among the first enemies you encounter in Final Fantasy 1. Because a lot of them are pretty, generic fantasy, wolves, goblins. So the goblins come back in different forms and sometimes with different names. Get called kobolds in a couple games. Alternating, focusing on mechanics versus story every other Final Fantasy until they hit 7. And then all of the things, yeah, it's a good way to think about it. Oh, shield has an actual chance to avoid damage. That's cool. I think it kind of worked that way in 6, but if I recall correctly, 6 was kind of broken. Like, the magic evade stat was busted. It was either always set to max, or it was always set to the same value as your regular evade stat, something like that. I think I can afford a weapon upgrade now. Hey, thanks, Fang. It seems like a pretty solid remake, though. I don't know why I would want a battle axe or a broadsword. I assume one does more damage and one is more accurate. This is the GBA version. It says the battle axe is still better. Magic Defense 0 and FF7. Oh, it showed when I went to buy it? Shit, thanks, Spiky. I didn't notice that at all. I wasn't expecting that level of detail. Oh yeah? What does the mod do? Wonder if it lets me go to buy it if I don't have enough money, just so I can see what the stat difference is. So I'll take accuracy over extra damage. Check real quick. Got a little fret noise in this song too, that's cool. No, you need to have enough gil to see. Rebalances the items, ups the difficulty. Adds 12 classes, oh that's cool. So you can do different challenge runs with some combination of the 12 classes. Are they classic jobs from later Final Fantasies? That's neat. And the defense bonus from the leather gloves is pretty good. I feel like I should really go into the Chaos's dungeon so I can one-shot the party with Dia. Are there black magic spells that can have the different targeting modes that target one versus target all, or is it just there's specific spells that always target all? Chanter and Battle Mage. That's cool. How do they distinguish Battle Mage from Red Mage? Dawn of Souls is based on easy mode? Okay. Pretty much would require additional grinding to be playable, I guess. Safe to assume the sword is more accurate. I think that's the rule in later Final Fantasies. When I was a kid, I never really cared about accuracy. I just wanted the biggest damage numbers, so I would use the Casey Bat in Earthbound and be very sad when it would miss constantly without realizing that that was something that I opted into. Red Mage is there, but they called it Ranger. I think actually I'm going to head back to Chaos's dungeon just to get this money here. Dia should be pretty fast, and it's cheaper to stay at the inn in Corneria. And we'll progress once I got spells here. The flashy portrait. Why am I missing so much? Even after playing Earthbound dozens of times, I don't think I really realized that until I was an adult. That accuracy was a thing that I had control over. Oh no! Gain levels is always cool. I do like job system deep cuts. One of these days I'm gonna get my dream and Final Fantasy 16 or 17 or whatever is just gonna be an old school 16-bit Final Fantasy with a job system. Because I technically get my job system kicks on the MMOs, but understand 2d5 and 1d10. I got into D&D in high school because of JRPGs, which is kind of fun. It's like playing a JRPG in tabletop. Most of the iconic Final Fantasy monsters are in 2, I see. Yeah, I really like the job system of tactics. I wonder if someone's done a rebalancing patch to tactics. I feel like that game is a really degenerate playstyle, and it has so many cool passives and unlocks for the jobs as you unlock them that, like, opportunity cost wins out in the end and you don't get to use 90% of them, which makes me really sad. There's a hard epic tactics mod. Gotcha. Like, I've said this on a lot of other streams, but to me, almost all of the passives that you unlock from jobs in Final Fantasy Tactics, you could just make them always on when you unlock them. Like, they're so situational that it wouldn't break the game, so that you always have item catch turned on if you go to the trouble to unlock it, right? Something you would never equip in that slot because everything else is way better. It should show the unlock requirements too, yeah. Otherwise it's walkthrough bait. I think they're hoping that you're going to unlock them by accident, but that also kind of feels bad, because then you just have a job and a character and you have to figure out, why do I have this, right? Base hard mode, easier mode that has the spell mechanical changes to try out. Maybe that's the space to go and like take a game that's already done, like Final Fantasy Tactics, and just sit there and try to tweak it and tweak it and tweak it until you get to a point where like every job has a niche to fill, every action is useful in some situation, right? I think the problem is that for single-player games, devs just don't have the time, and it's not worth the hassle to put that much effort into it, so they get these really cool ideas that are fun to read about in a manual or fun to design, but aren't necessarily as fun to play with. Should see if, like, it wouldn't be on TV tropes, should see if there's like a game design term for that. The phenomenon where you're reading a rulebook for a tabletop RPG, and it's just fun to read the rulebook, but the actual rules, if you tried to play with them, would be miserable. The kind of thing that's fun to design, but not fun to actually use in real play. Noob trap. Yeah. Well, I think it's a noob trap not by design, right? It's an emergent property of these fun to design things. You hope that everything's going to be useful in the end. You just don't really realize while you're developing it that, you know, the thing that makes me act twice as frequently is going to be better than a thing that lets me catch a thrown item every 7th battle. Only take it if you don't know any better. Yeah. Drinking stories. Fun and entertaining until you're into yourself. Right? Dia is only particularly good on the really big parties. We'll see how much money I get from a zombie party. It's about the same as what I was getting outside the next town. It's probably the way to go. Oh, I love that ghoul encounter. One enemy, 50 gil. That's where it's at. And is Sphera like multi-target or something? Okay, so I think it was 250 per spell. I already have all my weapon and armor upgrades. I was only gonna pick up 2 spells per character. Maybe only 3. I think there's only 1 white magic spell that I cared about. I think modern day WoW has fallen into that. This was fun to design and not fun to play trap quite a bit. This doesn't even necessarily need to be fun, it just needs to be well motivated in the design process, but then could fall apart in testing because, like, there's a disconnect between how something feels to create and how something feels to experience, if that makes sense. I think in the case with the WoW, the problem they run into with the most recent expansion was they said quite correctly that there were too many buttons, too many abilities, many of them were redundant. They wanted to reduce everyone's rotation to fit on a single bar. And it's like, okay, that's well motivated. I see why you're doing that. And then people play and they're like, this feels awful. Oh, choose the only one from one. I guess the look of goblins has pretty much been the same for a long time. Going back to the FF1 sprites. Versus like Dragon Quest, where a lot of the iconic enemies are in Dragon Quest 1. Yeah, it's definitely not all bad. It's more of a tragic thing, I think. Right. Talked about how gamers are, if they're not happy with something, they're quick to like blame developers and say, you made this bad on purpose. No one wants to make a product that's not fun, that people don't like. Like, people are passionate about game design, which is why they do it. It's just unfortunate when sometimes those things don't align. And I wonder how much of the time something that was fun to create also ended up happening to, by chance, be fun to play. And how much of the time something's fun to play because of constant testing and revision, right? There's the Diablo 1 story where Diablo 1 was supposed to be a turn-based CRPG like Baldur's Gate or whatever, and the developer turned the number of seconds in a turn down to 0 and magically accidentally invented the action RPG. Like that, I think that very rarely happens. I'm sure the Volcano and Sunshine was a make. Great. Two is the origin of 2/3 of the iconic monsters. Wow. It does, yeah. It's super different from the rest of the game with the boat. A bunch of unnecessary. It felt like Mario Maker level amateurish platforming. Oh, that sounds awesome, then. So he played Classic WoW when it was around and is now helping with like restoring the original edition, or did he design vanilla way back in the day? Oh, he actually did vanilla NBC. Okay, gotcha. Cool. It's very possible I've read a couple of his articles. If he's written stuff online. Oh, he's a namesake of the Staff of Jordan. Gotcha. I read an article that was critiquing the raid design of the Thoradin Extreme fight in Final Fantasy XIV by a classic raid developer. It may have been him. Have to double check. That was the first place that I really globbed on to the idea of time to death and how frustrating that is in every game, not just in MMOs, when devs don't get it right. Line, I don't think I want any of these, actually. I regret that later. Not enough to spend my limited gil on it anyway. Maybe later. Temper could be good for like boss fights. I don't know how good blind is in Final Fantasy 1. Alright, progress time. Gotta go talk to... There's pirates in this town that I haven't talked to yet, right? I remember this from 8-Bit Theater. What are you doing here? Bikke's Buccaneers. You've got cannonballs of steel to be taken on the great pirate Bikke. I'll make their bones go crunch. Whoa, that's a lot of pirates. Thanks. This is where blind would have been useful, actually. FF2 is a strange game. It's one where I would like to see them try that method of advancement again, informed by, you know, 3 decades of modern game design lessons. Yeah. Do you think, Johnny, that's true of the remake only, or true of the original as well? Hands are originally in one. Sleep Spell's good in this. Okay, good to know. Most enemies are weak to it. I can never tell with status effects in RPGs. Maybe it was like they were too strong in early ones, so they got nerfed after that, and since then they've kind of been bad across the board. I'm most sorry, young masters. Now that you've murdered my crew, take my ship for your troubles. You obtain a ship. Awesome. Alright, let's rest. The earliest boat in a Final Fantasy. You have a chocobo really early in 5, but not really. Because you get a boat pretty early in 5. You get a burrowing castle in 6. You don't actually get to use it at the 2 locations, though. I think tactical RPGs are basically a different genre, though. Okay, so those were ports I was seeing before. Hey! This look of Sahagins or Sahagins is still around in Final Fantasy today. Because they exist outside of Final Fantasy, but... There's a lot of iconic Final Fantasy enemies that are actually iconic Wizards of the Coast property, like Mind Flayers. Comes after disc 2. So you also get the Balam Garden in disc 2 of 8. Start with an airship in Skies of Arcadia, that's true. Big eyes. Who needs a houseboat when you have a school boat? Mountain Garden in the age of social distancing. Oh yeah, do you have the orange skies loot effects? I saw those scary images of Oregon where it's like just pure red out. Okay, so it's only places that you visited, that makes sense. Scary. Shark. Looks like where Harrison Ford is, Blade Runner 2049. Is it Sahagan or Sahagan? What's the source of that word? It's not Lovecraft, right? I know he was into fish people. So I'm seeing with a U, it's like Sahuagin. Character limit. Well, I'm working my way to a town here. If you're new to the channel, hey, I'm Marstead. I'm trying to beat every awesome game ever made. That includes the Final Fantasy franchise. We're currently working through a franchise focus. Remember, we don't have another JRPG on the schedule. You can see a list of all the games you've already played and beaten at marstead.com. You can click the games panel below the stream to go straight there. There's YouTube playlists for all of them. Couple thousand hours of content if that's your bag. You can vote for the next game we're going to play too. That same link below the channel there. There's some commands that you can type in chat to vote for the next game we're going to play. Let's see. Tomorrow we're playing Eternal Darkness, for example, which won the vote. We actually saw palette swaps already. When we fought the regular wolves, they were mixed in with the warg wolves, like the Sahuagin chiefs. And the ghouls in Chaos's dungeon. Six Brave New World is a fan game? I feel like I opened the floodgates after I played another Metroid 2 remake. I didn't really have any plan on touching the fan games, but... Is it a hack of 6? Like it's still the main story of 6? Overhaul for 6. You know, on the one hand, it's an excuse to play 6 again, and that's my favorite Final Fantasy. Oh, for Eternal Darkness. Got you the fix. I'm so sorry. I'm excited to finally play it. I've known about it through cultural osmosis for a long time, but never actually checked it out. I just like 6 as an ensemble cast, and it's got probably my favorite story of the series. 10's up there now after having played it several times. I wasn't as big a fan of 10 when I first played it 20 years ago, or however long ago it came out. But every time I've played it since then, it's grown on me. It's a very tight game from a storytelling perspective. Six Brave New World has a goal of making the game less broken, as well as giving it a more accurate translation. I'm excited about the first half, less excited about the second half. I've checked out Tomato's series where he goes through and looks at the Ted Wilsey SNES translation, the fan. I don't think it's a Brave New World fan translation, but there's a fan translation that's trying to be edgy or something. the GBA version and then the Google Translate version, and the fan translation doesn't look great for the most part. Son of a Submariner, alright. There's sand in my boots. Some good stuff in that game. I think the GBA retranslation, relocalization is basically perfect. Like, they go through and they make the necessary franchise adjustments, like calling spells by their correct names and summons by their correct names, but otherwise the spirit of the Wolsey translation is still there. Okay, good. Well, you got me thinking about it. There's a couple games that I played in my very first year of streaming back in 2015 that I wish I could play again now that I have, you know, people other than my real life friends that watch sometimes. And just some more experience playing more games. Sahagan, thank you. I will say it correctly from now on. I was pretty impressed with the GBA version overall, and I think when we played it I installed the thing that makes the audio the same as the SNES version and fixed the graphics. It wasn't a problem with the GBA version, it's just that the GBA screen is so dark that they needed it oversaturated for it to be visible back in the days before backlit screens. This game is pretty bright, for example, and I thought about darkening it for stream, but it looks okay. It's been kind of an interesting localization choice that Final Fantasy XIV has, in some cases, gone with Fire 1, Fire 2, and so on. Yelling Murtaugh at Kefka. Trying to cast spells and having them fizzle. I kind of like the rebranded spell names like Fira and Firaga just because they are unique to Final Fantasy and they're somewhat easy to follow, unlike Shin Megami Tensei spells where you have to have played several games to know what the hell Z-Yoga is. Okay, it's the element of the spell. It's the element of the spell, but the name is slightly different. It's the element of the spell, but the name is slightly different and longer than it was before. Got it. 1, 2, 3. I thought Ludo Effects was talking about Jaw spells, like above Ga. But if you're talking about Ga, the first time that was localized correctly was FF8. They've always been called it like that way in Japan. Did the suffixes have any inherent meaning in Japan? Does like ending your word with an A sound or a Ga sound imply intensity or level or something? Yeah. Agaja is correct. No, it's just a fun little Final Fantasy convention. I guess when I was talking about spell names and the GBA localization, I more meant some of the ones that were super busted, like Holy being called Pearl. which was like the Nintendo code in the 90s being way too cautious about religious references. Fire and ice are already foreign terms, sure. Or are they like written in katakana then? Interesting. That's kind of cool. I feel like we're missing out on that feel a little bit. So how we're calling back to these Western RPGs, so we're going to use Western words to describe the spell names. I guess you get that Shin Megami Tensei then, don't you, huh? But the spell names in SMT they're nonsense words in Japanese too, right? It's not like Zan isn't Japanese for wind, is it? Saber. Really, daggers are better. Attack 7, accuracy 10. They're just nonsense names, okay. Because it gives you that feel of it feels Japanesey, right? Oh, dagger's different from knife. Okay, that was why I was confused. Saber is more damage and slightly less accurate. Okay. Yeah, RPGs were hit really hard by that problem that you could fit way more information into a single character, single Japanese character. I remember Breath of Fire 1 was really badly hit by it. That game's menus look like poop. Horbon Monastery boss at 14 uses a ton of English words for spells. It's cool. It's kind of a neat dimension for text emphasis. Seems like something that Japanese is able to accomplish. There's a lot of meaning that you can embed into words that are printed in text, right? You don't need voice acting in a lot of cases. You can do it by using different alphabets. You can do it by literally typing out English words. Like, the English equivalent, I think, is lowercase versus uppercase for emphasis. Sometimes punctuation. It's not cooler to a Japanese person. Haruchibeito Narafaya. Copper armlets. Helm is better. 2 leather caps. Iron shield. Oh, 800, holy crap. Final Fantasy 20, the ultimate attack will be emojis. Full jump. I've been enjoying... I really like the look of the Windows 10 emotes. They've got this like thick black background on them. They look really clean. I wish that emoji were standardized across all platforms instead of basically having fonts that vary based on your OS. So when you're trying to send like stream update communications, there's already been the argument among article writers that it's important to break up your paragraphs of text with images, and I think that emojis can help to communicate that sort of thing. It's easier to eyeball an emoji on a Excel spreadsheet tab than it is to read the text or look at a color. That's so poggers, or whatever. I'm gonna save up to get Fire 2, Fira. Hero is going to be a pretty big upgrade to efficiency here once I get it. So this game doesn't really have it, but I was gonna say, I guess it does on like the menu here. I really like the video gamey look of pairing a little icon next to like saber, leather cap, leather armor. That's the main way in which I would want to use emojis. You can't... They don't have two modes, but there are spells that are explicitly multi-target. That's what I'm trying to grind for here, actually. But these are just the default names. Grab ice and fire on YouTube videos. I didn't take Noah for Serena. Hit the pick for me a couple times after that. Call them thumbnails because looking at them feels like a nail jabbing into your thumb. Oh, Minish Cat Base. I can hear that now, yeah, good call. Amount of balance for one is incredible. That's cool. I'm glad people are doing that. I use emojis in YouTube video titles now, just like the play emote for this game is not complete yet versus the check mark for this playthrough is complete. Makes it easier for me to eyeball them when I'm like working through dozens of them at a time. Probably hurts SEO though. Alright, let's see. Hey, I got enough for Fira. There's that little spin, jump, hold your fist up. I actually don't know how many emotes the characters had in the NES version of the game. Like, how long has that iconic nod been around they used to communicate everything? This is the Black Mage Star, okay. Let's do Fira. Holds paralyze one foe, okay. Because if the white magic has Cura, I'm probably going to want to pick that up before we progress too far from here. You got their little GBA fret noise sound for the town theme. Prince is not awake and there will be no Elf King. We'll be at the mercy of the Dark Elf's evil power. So he's had a Dark Elf in his head for a while. That's kind of cool. I wish the shops didn't play that song because I really like the town theme. In a journey I once took to the west, I wandered into an ancient castle. Not a soul to be found inside. Okay, cool. Everyone knows where Astos, King of the Dark Elves, is gone. Here lies Link. restore HP to one ally. Boo. But heal is restore a little HP to the entire party. Okay. So like Bannon's heal in 6. But it costs MP. Oops. Alright, well I'll probably save up to at least get heal. Multi-target healing is important in these games. There's a couple of classic FF songs that show up in 9. Poisona, Fear, Nullfrost, Vox. I feel like I don't want to pick up anything that I can just use an item for, given how expensive this shit is. Sleepra, Haste, which seems very strong in this game. Confuse, Plazara. Yeah, and like it's got the 4 fiends, it's got Lich, Kraken, Tiamat, and Marilith? No! Gotta find out what's causing that. Here's a little witch. You can brew any potion you can imagine. Her name is Matoya. I know, I met her. Dwarves live in a cave on the western edge of the Aldean Sea. They're a friendly bunch. I like finding secrets when exploring, but I kind of like that this game doesn't really have too many of them, so you're not stressed out about mashing the confirm button everywhere you run. Yeah, so I know this says that this game's not blind, but this is basically blind. I don't remember anything about the Dark Elf. I remember the first boss, the last boss, Princess Sarah, and the 4 fiends that I just listed, and that's about it. Treasure house has been bound by the Mystic Key. Okay, so if I'm keeping track of places that have been bound by the Mystic Key, there's that treasure room. There's 2 in the Chaos Temple. Scorpion. Oh, Jesus. That was not cool. I think Garland's one of the better villains. I wonder if I should load here. Cost of recovering from that, well, let's see. Cost of resurrection go up as you progress through the game? It sure does. Yikes. Yeah, it's like, because people were dying. I don't have enough money to rest the inn. Jeez, alright. It's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, your plan hurts me and the people I care about. But from your perspective, I guess I can see why you're doing it. It still sucks. I'm gonna stop you because it's a bad outcome for me, but... It's a pretty cool spell animation for Fira. And it hits like a truck. Oh, 390 gil for that fight. Okay. It's gonna be way easier for me to grind for stuff then. Let's see, does the inn restore status effects, or am I gonna have to pick up Poisona? Or start buying a bunch of antidotes? Sorry. Nope, does not recover poison. Now I know. So I guess that makes the Poisona spell a little bit less bad. It's expensive though. An item shop in town? I think it's up here. Brutal. Yeah, 9 is very character focused. I think it would have been stronger if it hadn't have gone weird at the end, but... Just talking about this during the credits of FF8 yesterday, that like... That was kind of something that Sakaguchi was clearly working on 7, 8, 9, and finally 10. How do I tell a love story and have that love story be, like, also the core plot of the game? Instead of just, and also there is a love story. Stronger if it hadn't gotten weird at the end is the FF thing. I guess Gaia and whatever the hell Zidane is a weird Monkey Man clone thing. I liked Garland, and that was a cool concept. But you kind of get the sense, like especially when you're running through the Crystal world and you're fighting the Crystal versions of the themes, that like this feels like this is in place of more content that got cut. It kind of has that, you know, Triforce Peace Hunt from Wind Waker feel. Final Fantasy X is stronger, but it hadn't gone weird in the beginning. Final Fantasy X-2 had just been Final Fantasy XI, and it was didn't take place in Spiro. It didn't involve these specific characters. It probably maybe could have been fine. I don't know. Yeah. Kefka, I think, is the most earned villain. Jecht works really well in that story, but he's not like a constant threat that you're really thinking about throughout the whole game. Well, you're not... You are thinking about him through the whole game, which is part of why he works so well, but... You're thinking of him not as the final boss. I know Yevon's technically the final boss, but that's the victory lap. Kefka did nothing wrong. Genocide's not that big of a deal in the long run. Crisis Core is the one where the last 10 minutes are the best part of the whole game, and the rest of it's like, what? And why? I think the whole thing with Kefka being like, he's the rando recurring... He starts off as like the recurring joke character that you see in so many games and so many stories. And then he commits genocide and you're like, oh, this guy is like that kind of crazy, okay. But just Ketchdal is still the final boss, that's fine. The Emperor is the real big bad. And then you're like, oh, shit. He wins in the end. They kind of get petty revenge against him. The world's soul is destroyed. You've seen... Oh, I see. I'm sure there's a TV Tropes article about Kefka. Person you thought was the final enemy gets killed by the final enemy in a surprise twist. Bigger Bad. Bigger Bad is like... There's something else that's nastier pulling the strings, but does it necessarily require that the thing that's nastier is just a normal goon that gets up-jumped? Because I think that's what I find so compelling about Kefka. It's not that he's... I think it's Starscream. Yeah, there you go. Starscream's pretty close. Yeah, I think they can do tragic villain pretty well. That's basically what Jecht is. He's not even really the villain, right? He's just the thing that you have to kill, unfortunately. But he's the emotional villain in Titus's story. Which is why I think that he works so well in that game. Dragon Ascendant, when the big bad's right-hand man becomes the new big bad. Okay, I like that one. Oh, shit. I was having fun chatting about this and didn't realize what time it was. Let me rest at the end and I'll save. Probably play Final Fantasy 1 next week. My plan right now for franchise focus is to play a game from the Mario, Mega Man, or Final Fantasy franchises, depending on what else is on the schedule that week. So if another RPG is being featured, I'll probably wait a week before bringing it back. And Kefka and Dolores Umbridge. Yeah, I think the psycho that the audience loves to hate is fun when used sometimes in stories. I think that's part of why I do like Kefka so much as a villain. Cool. We'll be back with more Final Fantasy 1 probably next week. I have to double check what's coming up in Subblock.